moving on to town council goals. We were asked if we could bring one or two goals, either for the council or for a personal goal you wish that the council would have. And I just wanted to discuss them. If I will open up to start the conversation. One of the things that I would like to do is I'd like to work with the utility committee. I would like to work on a phased water plan for Londonderry. Could be 1 through 20, 1 through 15. A realistic plan of action that can be updated yearly and amended as needed. I think it's something that we can look into the future and say, we have a 20-year plan for water, and this is what we're gonna do. And if we get to year 3 and we need to adjust it, we adjust it, but at least we have something written on paper of what we'd like to do. And I'd like to work with the utility committee to do that. That's one of my goals I'd like to do.
That's a wonderful goal. Just want to say that.
My second goal is I'd like to see if we can get monthly updates from the department heads as far as where they are with budget, and if there's anything that they need from us. This could be either written or verbal. We could have it either way, whatever's more convenient. But just so we don't get hit with something when we're 6, 7 months in and the council learns that this department's over budget and we have to fix it. Those are two of my suggestions.
Mr. Chairman, can I make a recommendation?
Yeah.
I think, in my honest opinion, I think that's important to come from the town manager / finance director to give them an update. No one better than the finance director for the area of expertise. But it's a good idea, and you're right. You don't want a surprise at the last minute or the last hour. So I think I'll make a little note here. And when do you want to start this? Do you want to do it monthly? You want to do it quarterly? Do you want to do it?
Let's start off monthly, because we're kind of starting a little behind, and see how we do. And I don't mind if it's a quick presentation from Justin.
Would you like the first one at the May council meeting?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else want to go next?
Go with the vice chair.
Shawn?
Sure. I mean, as far as goals, my goal is to preserve Londonderry's low tax rate with our excellent services. It is to maintain the look and feel of this town that I know people are very adamant about keeping Londonderry like Londonderry, and I think that's highly important. And then third, this one's most important and very passionate idea of mine. I want to make sure that we keep pursuing down the road to do a comprehensive look at the traffic in this town. I think every single time we get a onesie-twosie intersection, we do ourselves a disservice. We move the traffic problems around. Sometimes people have congestion as a problem. Sometimes people have speed as a problem. Sometimes people can't get on their road. None of these are solved by the same thing. But somebody comes before the council and they have one issue with one particular specific intersection they want fixed, and we change the speed limit of that road, we change that, we move the problem to 3 other spots, and we don't comprehensively look at this. This town, in the way it's going to grow in the future, needs to have a look at each roads, and we have to incorporate zoning with that and take a look at where our setbacks are, where our sight lines are. There is much more to this than just traffic cops and stop signs. And this is something I want to keep trying to drive forward, work with the existing staff and work with the new town manager, hopefully, to get us something where we have a long-term, similar to your water, we have a long-term solution to our traffic in this town.
Excellent. Who wants to one?
I don't care.
Deb?
Sure.
No one's raising their hand, so.
Well, I'm going to preface this with, I had 30 things on this item.
Two.
And I've whittled
Deb's
it
going
down.
last, though.
And I've whittled it down to like my top #1 thing, but I have 8 secondary ones.
Okay.
And they're small and they're really easy to do. So the first one, which is not, is I want to look into how to control growth. And I've got A, B, C, D, E, and F under that, which is I want to have a thorough look at growth management, ordinances, and zoning amendments, which I know Councilor Farrell had mentioned that Kelly was already looking at. So I guess I'd like to see a presentation as to where that stands where we are with that. I just, that's A. B is I would like to review the PUD, maybe thinking about putting that on the bookshelf, as well as the TIF and the commercial industrial things that we have. C was to limit the number of permits that we give out. I know that's a long process, but it can be done. D, I wanted to.
Building permits? I just want to make sure I'm clear on you.
Yes, yes, this is all under land stuff. I'm sorry, Kelly. Excuse me. D, I want to start working with planning and economic development to start think about preparing for some of the upcoming legislative changes from the state related to housing and how our ordinances will play into that and what we can do to be proactive as opposed to reactive to them. E, I want to look at the land use taxes for conservation and how that's divvied up and how we can maybe get more buildable land off the books and into conservation, since that seems to be a sounding thing that the people of this community want. And F is to look at implementing impact fees. So that was my number one thing. Number two was to
That was all number one, Deb?
that was just number one. These are all short and easy, I swear.
Yeah, that's for two
So,
things.
number two was to look at the Gilcreast money that we got and how that would be used. I'd like to have a discussion on how we're going to do that. I mean, I know that the $750 went to conservation, but the rest of the money.
Just to be clear, 35 Gilcreast.
I'm sorry?
You're talking about 35 Gilcreast?
Yes. I'm sorry, Kelly.
I just want to make sure it's on the record clearly.
I'm not sure if it is 35, but
It is.
that.
It is.
the-
I just
the-
want to state it so that
Okay.
minutes taker understands it.
Okay, so number four was to, which we did tonight, look at some of the warrants that passed. There were 5 of them. I'd like to revisit budget having teeth, maybe producing the default budget in accordance with RSAs. Also looking at the planning board being elected, having a deeper conversation. 5, having a joint school board, town council, library, and budget committee meeting in the summer like we used to do to find synergy for tax savings. Excuse me. Number 6, looking at new attorneys for the town and doing what the school board does, having a separate one for the town council for when we don't necessarily agree with the town manager, so there's no conflict.
Hey, wait a minute.
Well, you won't be here, so don't worry. I'm sorry. Number 7 is appointing 2 counselors as a liaison to be part of the union negotiations moving forward. Number 8, evaluating the plans. This kind of goes with what Shawn and Ron said for infrastructure, natural resources, and water. And number 9 is start for preparing for when cable fees are going to get cut and or go away because of live streaming. I noticed a lot of towns are looking into that because the revenues coming in are going to get cut back a bit. So I don't want to be blindsided for losing that income, what we can do to be proactive about it. And that's it for now.
You're awesome. That's it.
And I just want to clarify a couple of things.
Sure.
As with respect to what I've been looking at. So the first item, when Councilor Paul was talking about controlling growth, you referenced growth management ordinance. So that's something that the planning board dove into a few months ago. I was involved in that, but I didn't actually set out to do the research. That was a planning board matter that the planning board chair and planning board decided to do. That's a separate matter from impact fees. Impact fees is something that I am looking into, and I'm happy to bring that to the council
Oh, that'd be fantastic.
with our legal counsel as well, who's been assisting with the research and backup to that. So I just wanted to clarify that point, that I am looking at impact fees currently.
And one more
not
question,
remaining.
Kelly. Are you guys planning, well, since you know, right, is planning, are they looking at our ordinances as they stand now and our zoning amendments and making different moves to kind of write it for what's going on?
With respect to the proposed legislation?
Yes.
So, yes, we are. in my department, we're tracking that and we're paying attention to it, trying to prepare for potential amendments. We won't know for certain, obviously, what the language is going to dictate us to do.
Right.
But typically, at the end of the legislative session, they, state in coordination with NHMA, puts out a document that essentially directs municipalities as to the legally required changes that we need to do. And again, that's usually at the end of the summer, and at that time, we would address the zoning changes that we need to. Separate from that, I brought to the planning board a list of items a couple of weeks ago, maybe last month, talking about zoning amendments not related specifically to the legislature, and I had the board prioritize those items so that it was clear as to where the planning board's priorities lied. I can,
Yeah, I mean, a
Go through a list,
presentation
but-
would be good, to get a little more in the weeds into that, because I really think we, as a council, should be aware of how we're moving this forward.
Sure.
Thank you very, very much. A lot of work there going on.
So I just
Thank
wanted
you.
to touch up on a few of the items that you had there. So you had mentioned the 5 warrant articles that had passed last year and with
It
making
was
the
2
budget
years
committee.
ago. 2 years ago,
Fro-
Ted.
It was actually last spring, but yes.
Oh, well, yeah.
So we had talked about that at many meetings, and we had found that to make a lot of those changes, we would actually have to change the town charter.
Oh, I missed that. Thank you for bringing that up.
And so a lot of them
Number 3.
cannot just be enacted or changed immediately. So we had talked about that multiple times, that they would actually have to be changed on a town charter.
I understand that, and I'm glad you brought that up because I skipped one. Number 3 was a process for amending the town charter. Thank you for
Right.
helping me point that out as one of my goals.
Right, so we cannot just make those things just happen.
I understand.
And it's been talked about before that it would probably be a 2 to 3 or more
I
year
understand.
process for a town charter.
But also the
And it would also have
council,
to
if we,
vote,
Okay, okay.
I just
one at a
want,
time, please.
Yeah.
I'm already
Well-
speaking. So it would have to go, I believe, to the public to be voted upon for even doing a study. And then we would have to then go about the whole process of doing our charter change. So a lot of the items that you wanted to have passed and be enacted cannot just happen because they need a charter change.
yes and no.
So Ted, just keep in mind that this is just a list of goals that
I
Deb
understand,
brought
I
up.
just want to make sure the
Doesn't mean we're acting
realization
on it.
upon what
Just-
she
I
had
She's
wanted.
totally-
just saying them out loud.
Ron, I totally understand this
Okay.
because I was told this by you guys.
But
But that was a charter change done by a citizen. The council can put anything they want on the, as a warrant, for a charter change. So that eliminates the putting it together of a charter commission.
we're not debating the.
I know,
the-
but I just
We're not
wanna
here
be
to debate
clear.
the things tonight. We're just here to get some goals for the council.
I
okay?
understand, Ron.
So I just want to bring it back to,
Each individual.
each individual goal, we're not debating tonight.
Well,
All right?
Ted.
Ted or?
Yes, I wanted to have the land to be looked at that the town has owned for a while now, which is next door to us between here and the Grange Hall, of a potential use, whether it be recreation or whether it be, I know DPW in the past had shown some interest, or another use for that land instead of just sitting empty and being farmed. I think it's town land, and I think, me personally, I'd like to see a recreational use for that land. We have 5 acres of land there that I think are prime land for a recreational use and potentially more parking, as certainly we are limited with parking when it comes to Old Home Day and other events in the center of town. And I think it would be good for us to take a look at, different departments to come up with different ideas upon how we can use that going forth in the future, whether it's, enough time for something to come to a warrant article for next year or in future years. And for it to either, if it, whatever the costs may be worthwhile to go to some of the businesses within the community to try and get funding that way to help go forth. I know there's a lot of small businesses in town who would love to be able to put their name on a recreational use. But obviously, it may take some time to develop whatever plan that may be. So, but I think at least talking about it and bringing some ideas to the table would help for the council to understand and for the town to understand what that land could be used for. And so, yeah, that's the one thing, major thing I had.
Okay. Dan?
I don't know if we have enough room to do anything else after. Uh, I got a few goals.
Dan's very
Well,
diligent, typed them all out.
To touch base a little bit on what you were talking about, having, get the update on their budget.
Yeah.
On department heads, I would like to see us, probably every meeting, have a different department head come in and just touch base with the council to see, give us an update, all right? It's nice to hear from them, because the only time you really hear from them is at the budget process, and they say, oh, I need this, or this is what I'd like, all right? If we kind of heard from them every so often and said, hey, my department's doing great, but, you know, as we grow as a community, I might need something.
Okay.
In the last 3 weeks, I've met with Kelly, I've met with a lot of people in the community, and our employees, and one of the top goal was to help the community of Londonderry move in a positive manner while listening to the concerns of people, and have to try to facilitate a solution with issues that are brought up during the year. It might not always be the solution some people want, but I want it to be a solution that is best for our community. My other goal is, as the town is growing, the request for services increase in our community. I'd like to have each department reviewed to see if the staffing and needs is appropriate and probably funded to serve the community of Londonderry. This would help us probably during our budget review process, as they bring in requests for personnel, for equipment. We could find out everything is great, and we might get some recommendations that perhaps some departments are understaffed, or our staff is underutilized. So do we need more or less of staff in one area? Is the department structured in line with the communities our size? I mean, we have other communities in our area, Hudson and everything else. I mean, how are we doing with them? So do things need to be moved around to be more functional and cost-effective to the taxpayers, while continuing to provide the best quality service in our community? That's what I'm looking for.
Okay.
Awesome.
Excellent.
I think that one was.
Well, thank you all for doing that. I think it's a good exercise. We can kind of all feel like where we want to go as a council. So I think it's very productive. Deb, a little aggressive, but we got them all written down.
Well, two of Dan's was like 25, and one was like, I think, number
So,
30.
Moving on to approval of minutes, we